Well, my fellow Americans and fellow Christians, thank you for joining me today. My friends, it's not too hard to see that the generation we live in is completely passive in just about everything it tasks. It is not that I am a writer or a journalist, but if I am anything, it is a critic of the current living conditions under religion and politics that in essence seems to have men in power as well as citizens who have lost their minds. It is not that I intend to be critical, but it is my nature to discern or see events and activities that go against the grain of dignity, respect, and proper living in order to survive. I question it sometimes, and a good friend of mine said, "If you do not say it, who will?" I'm finding out you can say and produce great articles and videos that no one can give a hoot about. This then drives me to the place in my mind where I conclude, because no one is interested, then society, religion, and politics particularly, is in a corrupt state. It is not that I am the saint who sees all. On the contrary, I am a victim of the ignorance that permeates our society. The midnight rider in charge of the political arena, who claims to be a Christian, has pelted the caution sign on the roadway with buckshot. His political picks for the necessity of survival of the nation are no different than the careless backwoods hunter who shoots up everything because he is of a low mind. It is as if we are living in the American version of Animal Farm. Orwell, on the by, has been correct in his analysis of the Midnight Rider, keeping his power through dictatorial conditional executive power. It is a tearing down of a nation's essential legislation, agencies, and departments in order to replace them with rule of thumb and the iron boot. It is interesting how no one sees the possibility of every citizen eventually being identified for government purposes, as we read in Revelation, everyone receiving a mark. The nation no one seems to understand voted for its own suicide in the guise of success. The enigma of suicide is more or less someone wanting a different life by accepting the absurd, or someone wanting to leave their difficult life because no one seems to care, therefore accepting the absurd. Therefore, in essence, accepting the absurd, which we have done. America has been and still is a suicide nation. Thus, the reason for its decadence in society, Christianity, and politics. America has accepted the absurd and intellectual refinement as an impossibility because the country is condemned to what it hates most: authoritative dictatorial tyranny and the spirit of Antichrist. It has given itself over to the subjugation of absolute rule and power by the state, enabling their own destruction. The suicide mind relates, "My disasters were of my own making, therefore fate has overtaken me." The conscience says, "You sot and you swine, do you not know you are party to the destruction of your own welfare? Why are you hobnobbing with the lying cheats?" Thus fell upon him a blackness of despair, and the horror of being too late was the remorse of his own folly. Familiar warnings of the Old and New Testament. Thus the suicide mind of the nation can refute everything that offends and captures, but it cannot stop the chaos it voted for. The citizen is powerless in the age of surveillance and digital power. The freedom citizens have cherished is revived in the mind and preserved, but at this moment it has been through illusion, transfigured into executive power through the guise of success and refinement. Do not let us confuse even for a moment the impossible figure of the Midnight Rider, as he considers himself to be superior with much deeper reasons, not in service of the function of the will of the people at all. seeking a revolution to the bitter end, overpowering the freedom of a nation for a dictatorial power of the office. Stating through executive power the task of ours is not a trial, but a clap of thunder for our imperial rule. The suicide nation has found itself on the sharp edge of the absurd, as anyone who does not support this authoritative rule is considered counter-revolutionary. Our suicide nation has an appalling idea of what freedom is and has confused it with the power of one, the ruler over the ruled. So now the nation is living with the experience of a particular fate, knowing the coming rule is to abolish freedom and quell revolt through digital force and AI power. The citizen has now learned that in just a short time, his freedom of expression will be a constant confrontation with tyranny over his own obscurity, which has proven itself with the clash of Zelensky. The citizen voting for the absurd has negated the term of his personal freedom, and perhaps time shall tell that everything he has cherished under freedom shall go against his principles because of the power of the state. That when he sees the entire country suffer, that freedom has dissipated to one slave and one master, the Constitution suspended, that voting for the absurd has become his supreme tension, that any defiance will be too late, for the power of one has succeeded to dominate, leaving the consequence of repression with no guiding principle, just oppression. Therefore, it is the people who are guilty, not the state, and the absurdity of it all is the state will remain with the tag of being innocent, an outrageous contradiction that may never be resolved, for a suicide nation preferred its own destruction, embracing the absurd over its own welfare. So I leave you with this. Let others draw from smiling skies their theme, and tell of climes that boast in fading light. I draw a darker scene replete with gloom. I sing the horrors of the house of night. For new. May the Lord open our eyes that we may see clearly. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America.